listening to the Friday Five here on the Agent Survival Guide podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Ruppel, and in case this is your first time listening, welcome. We cover a variety of topics in these episodes, from the ones you'd expect, like insurance, healthcare, business, and technology, to fun, lighter fare, like app reviews, podcast, book, and streaming recommendations, even drink menus, because this podcast just wouldn't be possible without the help of caffeine in the form of a good cup of coffee. In fact, that is where we start our list this week, because both Dunkin and Starbucks have recently published their summer menus. We started with Starbucks last time, so we'll let Dunkin take the lead this season. Typically, Dunkin adds quite a bit more to their menu on a regular basis, and they also tend to roll out their menu a little earlier than Starbucks, and this summer is no exception. They are rolling out new offerings in 2 waves, so I'll just be covering the first wave today, which came out on April 30th. So some of these items might sound familiar if you are a Dunkin' fan. A pistachio signature latte will join the lineup, complete with pistachio flavor swirl, whipped cream, caramel drizzle, and waffle cone pieces. If refreshers are more your style, tropical guava is the new flavor this time around. It can be mixed with green tea, lemonade, or sparkling water. I am always an advocate for the sparkling water version, but I'm trying to cut down on my sugar, so keep that in mind. On the food side, Dunkin' released an iced strawberry lemon loaf cake, and they're also offering the $6 meal deal, which currently includes a medium hot or iced coffee, bacon, egg, and cheese, and hash browns for $6. It looks like the sandwich options sometimes change in this meal over time, but that is what's currently being advertised on the site. Also want to mention the pistachio shaken espresso and the caramel oat shaken espresso. Both of those are only available on the Dunkin' app. That seems to be a trend for restaurants with apps, and it's certainly a great way to drive downloads and registrations to those apps. The second wave rolls out on May 28th and includes a Pride donut and an orange and vanilla donut. But the thing I'm most interested in, Dunkin' is bringing back the Munchkin bucket for summer in an all-new design, and that includes a shovel, so you can reuse it after you've eaten up all the Munchkins. Starbucks' summer menu, as I previously mentioned, is a little bit smaller. That's been a trend for them as their new CEO is trying to get more foot traffic inside stores. But he's also trying to streamline the drink-making process so baristas aren't spending a lot of time making them and customers aren't spending a lot of time waiting for them. Just one new coffee drink this time around, the iced horchata oat milk shaken espresso, which will supposedly get its flavor from a new horchata syrup. A few years back, Starbucks had a horchata frappuccino, so I'm curious if this has the same taste profile or if it's a little bit different. Either way, I don't plan on ordering the espresso. I'll probably just add the syrup to a cold brew and customize it with some kind of cold foam. And when I do that, I will be sure to let you know how that turns out on my Instagram at the Sarah J. Ruppel. That is where I document my coffee drinking as well as the productivity I expect to have during the day as a result of that coffee. Moving on to the refreshers. If you were a fan of the Summer Berry refresher, it is back for summer 2025 in the same forms. You can get it with water, lemonade, or coconut water. I typically go for the coconut water blend on these, and it's one of the few drinks I get in either a tall or grande size. If it's coffee, it is usually venti or Trenta. And then last but not least, the Summer Cake Pop, strawberries and cream flavor in the shape of a strawberry. And as I mentioned, Dunkin's Summer Menu Part 1 is already out. Starbucks' summer menu starts next Tuesday, May 20th. Moving on to number 4 on our list. We've covered many aspects of social media marketing over the years on the podcast, but this is one we don't usually talk about, and that is viral music. Now, you can certainly create your content and search for viral music to add in the editing stage before you post. Nothing wrong with that. But you can also use this new tool to research current viral songs on not just TikTok, but a combination of social media and streaming. And then based on those results, you can brainstorm content with that music in mind. The new tool is Shazam's Viral Chart, available in Apple Music and on the Shazam website. I should probably mention this isn't necessarily a new thing. Spotify has a couple different charts tracking viral hits, including a Viral 50 global chart that we will be linking to in the episode notes. But the difference between the two that is probably worth noting, while Spotify does have a large market share, their charts rely solely on their own listener data. They are not pulling in external data. The Shazam viral playlist, in Apple's words, quote, doesn't just track TikTok hits. It captures the full spectrum of songs blowing up right now, whether through streaming, socials, TV placements, or that random 2004 banger suddenly resurfacing at bars and baseball games, end quote. TikTok also has its own viral chart. Want to make sure I mention that. Talk chart. So depending on where and what you're posting, that might be a good one to consult as well. Quick disclaimer, and Tina reminded me of this one. If you've got a business account, you'll need to use royalty-free music. So your options might be limited for use on certain platforms. Instagram is one that comes to mind when you have that business account selected. Also, make sure you have a good idea of the context behind the virality of the song. Definitely don't want to jump on something that your audience will find offensive or won't understand the humor. And I say that as the parent to a 12-year-old who constantly refers to my cringy millennial antics. We'll have the links to all those lists in the episode notes. Number 3, quick mention here, but an interesting one nonetheless. In a recent study published in the European Heart Journal, researchers looked at the health outcomes of almost 1.3 million people age 50 and older. They found that of those who had been vaccinated for shingles, 23% also showed a lower risk of cardiovascular disease. According to Hyun Lee, one of the researchers and co-author of the study, quote, since shingles can cause inflammation in blood vessels and lead to blood clots, which in turn raise the risk of heart disease, preventing shingles through vaccination might also help reduce these cardiovascular risks. If a vaccine helps lower the risk of both infection and serious chronic conditions, it becomes an even more valuable public health tool, end quote. Heart benefits aside, I am looking forward to the day I'm able to receive this vaccine as someone who has had shingles as an adult. It is not a fun time. I would get that vaccine in a heartbeat if it meant I never had to worry about a reoccurrence. But that's not why we're mentioning this here today. In addition to recent news about potential benefits for those suffering from Alzheimer's, this is a great example of content for your client newsletters. Studies that reflect their demographic, or a vaccine that's only available to a certain demographic, or a potential treatment for heart disease, which is still the leading cause of death for adults over the age of 50 in the United States. And then outside of content for a newsletter, this is one of those current events that if a client brings it up in a meeting, you can go over what types of vaccines are covered in their plan. It's also a great time to ask about the family history of heart disease and potentially a cross-sale opportunity for a heart attack and stroke policy. Number 2. We've recently been focusing on a lot in the ACA marketplace. That was very intentional. We bookended the Ritter ACA and More Than Medicare Summit last week with that content to supplement what agents have been learning there. And recently, amidst other CMS and HHS activity, there were 2 bulletins sent out about ACA market rate filing instructions and off-exchange only plans that might offer some insight into what CMS is thinking for 2026. First thing I will mention here is that nothing is set in stone. Even with these 2 bulletins, they are instructions on how to proceed. And the text also reminds us of that fact. But there are some interesting nuggets in these instructions. We'll start with the reminder that ACA premium tax credit subsidies as they currently exist are set to expire at the end of 2025. The American Rescue Plan Act and the Inflation Reduction Act extended subsidies to cover more people at more income levels, and those are the extensions that are set to expire at the end of 2025. Also good for background info. In 2017, the first Trump administration defunded ACA cost-sharing reduction subsidies, or CSRs. When that happened, we saw the rise of what's been called silver loading. That's where plan issuers offset the loss of the CSR by passing along the extra cost to the silver-rated plans in the ACA marketplace. And those are the only plans eligible for either type of subsidies. So we'll start with the first bulletin that sets forth guidelines on how they'd like insurance carriers to calculate rate filing submissions. Regardless of whether the states have an effective rate review program or not, CMS is asking them to submit 2 types of rate filing justifications. The first filing, quote, must be developed using assumptions that Congress will take no action to appropriate funds to make CSR payments to issuers or extend enhanced premium tax credits, end quote. The second filing, on the other hand, quote, must be developed based on the following assumptions. 1, Congress appropriates funds to make CSR payments to issuers. And 2, the enhanced premium tax credits under the ARP and IRA expire at the end of 2025, end quote. The second filing is perhaps the most interesting because it would suggest that in the absence of the premium tax credit subsidy, CMS is considering appropriating funding to offset the cost of once again making CSR payments to carriers. 2 filing options that might hint at what CMS is thinking, even though they do very clearly state that they might appropriate funds for CSRs, they might extend subsidies, they might do both of these things, and they might do neither. In their exact words, CMS, quote, urges states and issuers to be prepared to react to congressional action that could affect plan year 2026 individual market premiums, especially those actions that could lead to lower premiums for coverage on and off the exchanges, end quote. In their second bulletin addressing off-exchange only plans, CMS, quote, encourages states to require issuers to offer and market plans in the individual market that will be available exclusively off exchange and will not include any CSR load, end quote. They claim that in doing so, this will offer an option for enrollees who do not qualify for the premium tax credit to reduce their premium cost. 2 very interesting bulletins. Again, nothing has been set in stone, but CMS has given instructions to carriers on how to calculate rates for the upcoming plan year. They've also suggested that it's wise for carriers to be prepared for other possible scenarios. We will definitely be keeping an eye on ACA legislation, and we will report back here when we hear any updates. Moving on to our number 1 story this week. Moving over to the Medicare side of insurance sales, we have the official dates for the 2026 AHIP certification. Each year, there's a small window of time when AHIP certification is unavailable as the organization transitions from one plan year to the next. The swap typically happens over a weekend to minimize the disruption. And this year, the 2025 version of AHIP certification will become unavailable on Thursday, June 19th, beginning at 11:59 p.m. It will then remain offline from Friday, June 20th through Sunday, June 22nd. And then the new 2026 plan year certification should go live on Monday, June 23rd. We don't have a specific time for when the certification is going to go live, but if we do get an update on that, we will be sure to let you know. And as the next few weeks come along, we'll be reminding you about the AHIP certification dates, just to keep that in the forefront of your mind, and also so that newer agents entering the market can be forewarned that they should probably hold off on taking that test until after the update so they can gain certification for both 2026 and the remainder of 2025 all in one fell swoop. So make sure you're following along with our show. Then you'll be able to stay updated on that information as well as other important dates for AEP 2026. But for now, I hope you have a great weekend. Stay healthy and stay safe out there, and we will see you next week. The Agent Survival Guide podcast is a production of Ritter Insurance Marketing, an integrity company. This episode was written and produced by me, Sarah Ruppel. Script editing and fact check by Tina Lamoureux. Podcast design by Urban Rivera. Follow along with our show wherever you like to listen.